right. Hello, everybody. We should be live. Just give me 1 second. Let me turn the music down a tad so I can hear myself think. In the meantime, maybe someone out there in chat can tell me whether or not the music is good, the volume is at a reasonable level, video is doing well, all that sort of things that make for a good stream. Woo! We got some folks in chat already. Hey, Not Ghosty, you comment on a lot of my videos. Hello there. Friar Ross, glad to see you. You are also a frequent commenter. Holy Terra 87 and Jinx Gaming. Hello, everybody. All right. Oh, you're starting Stormwreck Isle this Saturday. You can't wait. It is a fun adventure. I think that's the first thing I want to say is I had a good time running this thing. I played through this entire adventure last weekend. I got together 3 of my friends, and we ran this in 2 6-hour sessions. I told the players, okay, we're going to try to do a speed run here, so don't spend too much time dawdling. Just make your decisions, because we're going to try to get through the whole adventure. And we did. We ran all but one of the encounters that was kind of optional, and they found everything but like 1 or 2 of the secrets. So I would say we got about 85%, 90% of the adventure done, right? We ran this thing. And I also made a good effort to run it by the book. Like, because I knew I was going to do some review work, I didn't want to homebrew the heck out of this adventure and then say, oh, well, my version is perfect. I really wanted to run it like as much as I could based on what I think other people are going to be playing. That being said, you can never get 100% just, what's on the text. That's impossible. One, because the adventure itself is not going to contain every single answer for every single thing the players could possibly come up with. So no matter what, you're going to have to improvise. And secondly, there are some little things that I thought, okay, I'll make a few small changes, one small change in each section of the adventure that I think will make it a lot more fun to play. And that way I can talk about that when I'm doing my my series on how to prep this adventure. So here are some small changes new DMs can make, just sort of get a feel for what that would be like. Yeah. So I also put up a slideshow. Which optional encounter didn't I run? I didn't run the second batch of zombies at Dragon's Rest. And I'll tell you why when we get through. Oh, hey, how you doing, Fred? Thanks for showing up. Abram, thank you for telling me everything sounds good. Do I think the adventure can be run with the box and supplementary videos without additional support for a totally new Dungeon Master? Yes, absolutely. I did not read the entirety of the rule book, but just based on the way this adventure is presented, it's extremely new DM friendly. Like, they went out of their way to make it super accessible. And that is probably this adventure's biggest strength, is for a starter set for getting new people to play, this does it much better than either the Essentials Kit or the original starter set. I still think Phandalin is the better adventure overall. But for new DMs, this is the product you want. Woohoo! All right, now where is my slideshow? Okay, so right there, the picture that's already up, this is all the crafts that I made for this adventure. I have a video on my channel already, I'm sure some of you folks have watched it, of all the things I made to sort of make this game pretty. Instead of using all of my minis and terrain, I just made this cheap $20 set, which was plenty useful. Like, my players loved it, we had a good time. It was great. Oh, Not Ghosty's going to be hosting the campaign this Friday. I'm sure you're going to have a blast. Absolutely. All right. And so here we are, just about to start the campaign. The 5 pre-gen characters, they're a good job. I'm sure you've heard they are not the ones from the cartoon. But we have our standard array there. We have our fighter, wizard, rogue, cleric, and then a paladin, which I thought was a good choice. Something that's extra useful against undead, which come up a few times in this adventure. So everyone picked their characters. I like the fact that these characters have their backgrounds, and the backgrounds they either tie into a quest directly, like, oh, I have a vision of some undead, I need to go fight the undead. Or they have sort of emotional goals. I need to find my destiny. I need to deal with the fact that there is corruption in the world, but yet I want to be good. And then in the first chapter of the adventure, well, and I'm not gonna get ahead of myself there, but that's sort of like the introduction. That in the first starter set, they give you the traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws, and so they give you sort of a complete character. Here, they just give you a background and then encourage you to make it up yourself, which I think is really important for new players. The sort of you're getting that ownership of the character right away, and that's like the very first thing that you do. You get off the boat on the island, and then you describe your character, which is perfect. He was thinking that the Harpy could lure the PC ship, and that's how it arrives at the Isle. Oh, that could be cool. That they were, you know what? Holy, remind me when we get to that section, and we'll talk in the later. We don't want to spoil it. Okay, so here is the little map, right? I gave the players this thing, which is the map of the island. I only gave them the location filled in, the Abbey, and then as the adventure progressed, they filled in the other locations as they found them. And then we also got this map of Dragon's Rest Abbey, which I thought was kind of important to have the players have something that they could move around. I'm going to skip forward. So here's the zombie fight. First level characters, as soon as they get off of the ship, they're attacked by 3 zombies. Zombies are slow. The adventure tells you have the option to run, which I think is really cool. Something that I did in the back of my head was I was prepared to add to the narration. Do you want to fight the zombie in case somebody went down? Do you want to fight the zombie, or do you want to pick up your companion and run away? To sort of clue them in the idea that they could grab their downed friend and book it if they needed to. We did have somebody go down in this fight because first level characters are super squishy and crits happen. And then we got up to the Abbey. And the Abbey, I think, is probably the strongest part of this adventure. The quest hub is really, really excellent. Now, in the adventure, they have 9 kobolds that are living here, right? I thought 9 was too many, so I consolidated them down into 3. I have the pious one, the mischievous one, and then Mila, who runs the shop and who has 2 brothers who are important to the plot. Each of these kobolds can also tell the players about one of the quests. This guy can tell he saw the ship crash. This one knows that this other NPC is having trouble getting the herbs, and Mila can tell you about the observatory. And here is something that the adventure doesn't actually say. The adventure doesn't say anything about Mila other than she has 2 brothers and that she runs the shop, and that her wings got hurt by sturges. But what a DM should know is that means that she ran from the observatory. Her brothers are at the observatory. By the way, the observatory is like where the final boss is. She must have been there sometime, so she knows where that is. The leader of this cloister, Runara, she's actually a dragon. And she wants to keep the location of the observatory secret from the characters. So that's something a DM should maybe keep in mind. That this particular NPC knows where that location is, but the leader of the cloister wants to keep that secret. What level characters will be used for this campaign? It's levels 1 to 3. Yeah, Holy Terror 87 got it right. Level 1 characters are extremely, extremely squishy. Like, Mike Shea is wrong. This adventure will kill first level characters because if you're playing by the book, Runara is a dragon, right? So she can swoop in and save the day. But by the adventure, she only does that in the event of a TPK, not one player going down. So I think it's really important to spend some time injecting some life into these characters at the cloister here. These are the people that you're going to be caring about, that the characters are going to go on adventures to help and protect. So it's really important that you develop some sort of affection with them. So a couple of things I did to prepare for the cloister was I made a list of chores. Things that people who were living there would go about doing to sort of create this sense of community, to make the cloister seem like a living space that the players could really engage in. In addition to the kobolds and Runara, who's actually a dragon, there are these 2 NPCs right here, which I think are kind of big misses. They're missed opportunities in this adventure. They're really cool. They have some like cool backgrounds and description, but nothing happens with them. What's her name? Vickum? Hold on, let me look at my thing. Oh yeah, her name is Varnoth. She was an ex-general, and now she's like living there trying to find peace. You can raise her disposition by talking to her about her favorite subjects, like history and how a person can have an impact on the world. And that will make her friendly towards you. But being friendly towards you doesn't do anything. And I thought that was like a huge miss. That's a really cool like little nugget in there. It's not about making a charisma check. It's about understanding who she is as a character. And that's going to change her disposition mechanically. But that doesn't do anything. And this guy, he is a retired thief. Like, he came to this island to escape the life as a poisoner. Now he's an herbalist. And the rogue's personal mission is like, hey, I heard that the thief ran away here with a whole bunch of treasure. But there's nothing came of it. That was just a false rumor. And that was kind of a letdown too. So something I would change was make it so the stories got confused differently. Confused not as in there's no treasure, but confused as in this person and another person got merged into one. So there's another poisoner from the Assassin's Guild on this island, and he's the one that has all the treasure. And have that treasure actually be the dragon's hoard at the end. Like, there's going to be, at the end of the adventure, there's a dragon, and the dragon has a hoard. Why not make that hoard the treasure the rogue was looking for, instead of it being a dud? That's something that really, like I said, I thought these NPCs were really, really cool. They have some cool personality to work with, but they don't go anywhere towards the story. And I think that is my one big criticism of this adventure overall, is all the quests are kind of cool. All the encounters are really cool, but they don't really build up to anything. They're all sort of sequestered and individual, and they don't lead up to a finale. The end quest is just the end because that's when the book stops. And so if I were going to go through and homebrew this again, I would spend some more time trying to build all these little individual quests up to that finale. Like what we're talking about with Milo right here. A DM should know that she knows where the final boss is, but Runara doesn't want her to say. And that can create some tension. That can create the sense of, oh, now we're making progress when she finally reveals the observatory. Now we're building up to this finale instead of it just happening. All right. Thank you, Ryan Sells. You think it's a really good art and you appreciate that DMs put their heart and soul into the game. Most of this stuff is, like tracings and like kind of rough sketches. Phil says there are a lot of threads that don't weave into anything. There are hints that there are dead dragons underneath, but doesn't really do much. All right, so that is my little rant about the cloister. It's a really cool place. The kobolds are a lot of fun. There's just too many, so I consolidated them. You have to do things to make it seem like it's a living place that they care. We had dinner together every day. Like at the end of the adventuring day, everyone came back to the cloister and we had dinner at the table and we described who was cooking and how everyone was acting. And that built, again, you have to build up a sense of affection towards the folks at this cloister. All right. Yeah, see, there we go, having them meet around and talk to everybody again. Another picture from the game. So the first mission they decided to do was the Compass Rose. So when you first get to the island, zombies come out after you. And if you spend too much time dawdling at the cloister, more zombies can come and sort of get everyone's, butt into gear. But we didn't have to use that encounter, and that's the one that I skipped Holy Terra. Is the climax satisfying for players and dungeon masters? It is a fun fight, but I wouldn't say it's really a climax. Like I said, there's nothing really building up to it. It's just the next mission. And so I guess in some respect, the adventure does kind of nudge you to say, okay, well, here's some other things you can try to do after this. But that is my one big criticism. So I guess when we're going to go through and homebrew it yourself, that's something I would keep in mind. What hints can I drop about the finale? What hints can I drop that there is this dragon, wormling, Stormrender, who is waiting for a comet to approach to get the power of all the dragons on this island? That's the big story, by the way, everybody. Spoiler alert. There's a young blue dragon wormling on the other side of the island at the observatory, and he's waiting for a comet to pass overhead. And once the comet passes overhead, he's going to seize the power of all the dragons that have died on this island. And that's what you're trying to stop in the final mission, but there's nothing really along the way that hints at that, other than you visit some spots where dragons die, but no one will tell you. All right, pause. We're going to go back one more time to talk about the cloister. That's another something that I think will pay large dividends in your payoff. In the cloister, there's a library. And of course, there's a library. Your players are going to want to go there and investigate. So I would spend some time thinking about what sort of lore they can learn about the island, about dragons, about comets, and jot that down. So when they make lore checks, you have stuff handy. All right. So yada, yada, yada. They go to the first quest they decide to do is go to the Compass Rose. So like, okay, here's where the zombies are coming from. Let's go check this out. And this was a really cool dungeon. This was my favorite. This is one of my players' favorites. It's a sunken ship with full of undead, and that's just really cool. Right? But again, they're first level characters, and this is really deadly. We had a character die here. There's a ghoul underground, and ghouls will paralyze you for a minute. Like, that's nasty. And even just a couple of zombies, when you only have 12 hit points, you know, that's one crit and you're gone. Dinners sound awesome, giving the PCs a routine to look forward to and make them care more for the kobolds. Yeah, and it's one of the things too, like the Tarek, the poisoner, he is now the cook, right? So he's the best one at doing that. And that's another sort of way to show that there's dimension to everybody there. And the other thing about the dinners is they are set roleplay opportunities. Like, you're carving out specific space. Say, here's where we're going to have our RP scene. Here's where we're going to have a reveal. Here is where this tension between these two NPCs, this NPC and this player, is going to resolve itself. I think the observatory encounter would be cooler if when you get there, the ritual's already going on. I'm thinking about changing it from a comet to an eclipse, more dramatic. Ooh, that's a good idea. A comet to an eclipse. Eclipses are fun. All right, so the pirate ship was really cool. Here's them like going to below deck and having a ghoul jump out from behind a crate and almost kill them. The one change I made here is there's a captain's quarters, but there is no captain zombie, right? And I thought that was kind of a letdown, right? No zombie has a key that unlocks the chest. There's no indication that any of these zombies was ever the captain that slept in the nice bedroom here. So, and later on in the adventure, at the observatory, you find a +1 battle axe. But by the time you get there, like that's at the end of the adventure, you're not really going to have a chance to use it. So I took that +1 weapon and I gave it to one of the zombies and made him the captain. And that was really cool. I thought that was a good change, although switching the zombies from a D6 to one of them having a D8 +1, again, that's a more likely chance you're going to kill these low-level players. That one die size actually makes a big deal. Because monsters that can only hit for a D6 +1 can't auto-kill a character. They can't possibly do enough damage to auto-kill a low-level character. But once you switch that die to a D8, it becomes a possibility again. What if the captain was still alive? In the adventure, the Compass Rose crashed 40 years ago. And so that might be another opportunity to sort of plant this foreshadowing of what's to come. You can say, when the comet passes overhead, that's what causes all the undead to rise. And that's the same power that Sparkrunner is going to use to draw the power from the dead dragons. So maybe these zombies weren't here the whole time. They're just coming because now the comet is coming. And you can put that information in the library. Or maybe it was just a normal sword, and then in the pirate captain's star log, he says, "Oh, my sword was glowing, 10 days ago, but now it's not." And they consult the Charles Star and say, "Oh, well, that was because the comet was passing overhead. And it's about to pass it over again soon." Something like that. Again, I think if I were to homebrew this, I'd be always looking for ways to hint at what the ending is going to be, to hint at something building up. Because there's not a lot of that right now. So you explore the Compass Rose, you fight the zombies, and then it's a dynamic encounter. Like, after you come back up, there is a harpy on the deck. So you explore, and then once you come back topside, there's some harpies there. I made a short about kind of expanding that harpy encounter a little bit. My characters were first level, so first level only got one harpy. And it was cool. They were so worn out, they couldn't possibly fight it. And so they tried to figure a way to drive it away. They ended up throwing flasks of oil up into its nest and then lighting it on fire, which I thought was good enough, right? They smashed the amulet that was cursing this place, and then one of their characters did die right here. One of the first level characters did die during this encounter. And then so they buried him up on the cemetery, and from that vantage point, they saw the fog encompass the ship and then it disappear because they broke the curse. You don't really like the reasons for the zombies as written too much. Yeah, I mean, you're going to homebrew that away, but that also means you're going to have to make something else in the captain's journal. Because that was a really, at least for me, that was a fun moment. So in the chest in the bottom of the ship right here, it's airtight. If the characters are smart, they will bring it up to the surface before they open the chest. But if they're impulsive, they'll just open the chest and the water rushes in. Because it's not a video game, right? In Skyrim, you can open a chest underwater and nothing happens. But this is more reasonable. And as soon as the players do that, they're like, oh, duh, of course. It's one of those great things that really only happens in D&D. All right. And in the chest, there's a little letter from the captain that says, oh my gosh, one of my passengers cursed the whole ship. And that's why they're all undead now. Yeah, but Holy Terror, yeah, feel free to homebrew that away. Have it relate to the comet or the eclipse that's coming. That's what I would do. All right, here's another scene of them going back to the Abbey and having dinner together. You see Rhaenyra at the head of the table. And then they went off to the next encounter, to the caves. And on the way there, we had an owlbear. In Chapter 1, they have 3 encounters. Say, okay, here are like our random encounters, but they don't call them random encounters. They here are encounters that you can just put in while they're traversing the island. And they give you some examples of when you can place them. I thought that was really, really cool. Like if you're going to this place, might be the chance for the owlbear encounter. If you're going along the coast, here might be the chance to do the Drake's one. I thought that was really interesting. This owlbear encounter is fun, but I think it could have used a little more new DM help. So this is against level 2 characters, and an owlbear will do like 24 points of damage a turn. It will kill them. Absolutely, right? Owlbear's a CR3. It will eat level 2 party for breakfast. But this encounter, the owlbear has a whistle around its neck, and if a character gets close enough to see the whistle, and then snatch the whistle and then blow it, then the owlbear's friendly. It used to be in a circus. But the adventure doesn't really give the DM tips on how to make that happen. So what I'd recommend is having the owlbear take the ready action. On its turn, it moves up to them, but instead of attacking, it just readies to sort of drive them away from its territory, which is what it's trying to do. I would also describe how it has bits of like Harlequin fabric on its wrists and ankles, and maybe like bells too. Something to give them a little more hint that this isn't an ordinary owlbear. This is Hoots Magoots from Dungeon Mayhem. Yeah, the owlbear encounter shocked you. Are the random encounters set up as fights? No, not really. That's another thing that I like about this adventure over the original starter set. The Phandelver, all the random encounters are just that. Like you roll on the table and then you get a group of monsters. These are all bespoke encounters that have... well, here, this is actually something for the entire adventure. Every encounter that involves something that's not a complete monster, they have a non-violent solution for. Right? So unless something is like an elemental or a zombie or something that's, truly, utterly a monster, non-sentient, right? You can talk to it or negotiate it, and the adventure provides you some hints on how to do that. Really, really cool design, I think. But yeah, I think initially they're set up as fights, but there's always a way out of it. All right, here's us moving into the coves. That's our fighting the big guardian octopus there. And this is the one change I made to this section of the adventure. This octopus by itself is kind of boring, right? It just has a bunch of hit points and it has one attack. And that doesn't make for a very interesting fight, in my opinion. That's just kind of a slog. So what I did was I decreased its hit die by 1. And then I said when it's bloodied, it releases spores. You have to make a con save or you become poisoned. And while you're poisoned, you're also incapacitated until the end of your turn. I chose incapacitated and not paralyzed because paralyzed gives auto crits. Stunned means you really can't do anything. Incapacitated just means you can't take actions. And so that's a lot less punishing for low-level characters. And all I wanted to do, so this is going to take away a turn, and so I took away 1 turn's worth of damage. So the Octopus is still about even in terms of challenge, but I thought it just made it a little bit more dynamic of an encounter. Like when it's halfway done, something happens besides just smacking you with the tentacle. All right. Ooh, how we doing, chat? We enjoying this? All right. You're not even subbed. How did you get into my notifications? Probably because you've watched some of my shorts before. Subscribing doesn't really mean anything other than to like the YouTuber's ego. So subscribe, please. YouTube really does recommendations based on your watch history or the watch history of people with similar interests and similar watch patterns as you do. But thank you for stopping by anyway, Jack. I appreciate it. All right, so here's the rest of the cave. Here's the Micronoid NPC. So something about this adventure that I think is important, this part of the adventure is important to pay attention to, is the rapport spores. The adventure as written prompts you to ask the players how it makes them feel now that they can emote more closely with their fellow adventurers, which I thought was a really cool roleplay moment. And the whole idea of being able to communicate psychically with these creatures is really cool. It's something that's, kind of funky, outside of your usual fantasy. Something that I think new players will really dig. And even, my players really dig it. Micronoids are fun. And they're sprouts. There's little baby ones. That was one of my players' favorite moments. Hey, Jim Crofts. Thank you for stopping by. Phil, I'm glad you appreciate it. All right, and so here's the picture of the fight. Okay, this is a deadly fight. All right, the Octopus does a lot of damage, and there is no way to heal. You get 1 health potion so far. You might be able to take a short rest, but there's the Violet Fungus that'll come after you. And the Violet Fungus are really, really nasty too. If they roll a 4, how many times they can attack you, that's 4d10 damage. That's a big ouchie. So it's hard to short rest. There are the little red mushrooms that you can gather to make healing potions later. My players asked what happens if they ate one, and I said it acted like a good bear. They got 1 hit point back, which is not in the adventure, but I thought it was pretty rational. Plus, I knew they were low on hit points anyway. They fought these 3 fume drakes, whatever they were, and they were almost dead, right? They had somebody go down, they got stabilized, they were out of healing. And then they had maybe 5 hit points between a lot of them. And then in the crystal across the chamber, there is a CR1 fire salamander that has resistance to damage. Had they smashed the crystal and that thing came out, it would have been a TPK. Absolutely would have wiped the party. Luckily, my players were clever. They took the crystal carefully again, and they tried to roll it out of the cavern. This is something that they don't account for in the adventure. It's not one of the possibilities listed. So again, you're going to have to improvise. I had to improvise. They threw it down a cliff and the salamander broke out while it was down a gully and they shot it with arrows until it was dead. Whatever. But again, this would have been a really, really, that fire snake would have killed them. So I think giving them another way to maybe have some healing or letting them know that they can sleep in the area where the Micronoid leader is sleeping, it's safe for them to rest there, would be a good idea before going into this final fight. Don't rest too long or the tides will come in. Yeah, but the tides only come up to the first level there. Which again, I think is kind of a waste, right? They have this tide chart, but it doesn't really have a big impact on how this plays out at all. Again, that was a cool bit of dynamics they add to the adventure, but the payoff's just not there. All right, then we're back at the, again, they really enjoyed this idea of we're going back to the Abbey all the time to meet with our friends there, to regroup, to rest, and then go back out again. So every time they rest and refit, they can, you know, buy gear. They have a chance to tell more stories. They witnessed Vekram and another kobold cleaning out one of the cells, doing their chores together. And she was like using her broom like a spear, like back in the day, completely adapted to her prosthetic. The other kobolds were gardening. Some of them were scrubbing the temples clean as a group. Really trying to build a sense of community around this place to get the players to buy in and get invested. That's the kind of stuff you love, player ingenuity, Dennis. Hey, thanks for stopping by again. I really appreciated it, that they were trying to be... I appreciate the fact that they looked in the crystal, saw the egg, realized there was something dangerous, and tried to get the way out of it. The reason that there's a fire salamander there is because there's a vent to the plane of fire. But that is not really ever presented to the players. And so that's probably something I would change about the Crystal Cave if I were to run it again. When I did run it, I said that it was like a furnace almost. The plane of fire kept opening up and closing, so they could see there was something there. That's not in the adventure, but I wanted to give the players some sense of what was happening, so they could know that there was a reason why. And again, it's just... But it's not a real resolution, right? You temporarily fixed it, right? You smash the crystal, you open up the vent, and all the fumes can get sucked out. But there's nothing to stop that, another crystal from growing there, and the plane of fire from opening up and causing another, burst. And that was actually kind of confusing. There are purple crystals in this cave, which seem to grow naturally, and then one big orange crystal. And it says the orange crystal was there from the plane of fire. Is that a normal purple crystal that got really, really big and turned orange? Or is that a new growth straight from the plane of fire? The adventure is not really clear, and that's something I found kind of frustrating. So I'm going back and forth. I'm trying to get all my thoughts out. Eventually, I'm going to make a regular video series on how to run this adventure and how to prep it. And this is sort of going to be for me. I'm going to download the transcript and use this as the base. I'm trying to get all my thoughts out at once. So thanks for bearing with me, chat. But again, this dinner scene. All right, and then they had the big reveal, right? Rhaenyra she showed herself as a dragon, which is a cool moment, right? The players suspected something was up based on the way I was describing Rhaenyra, how she was sort of radiated charisma. Her eyes were really intense. She was always supernaturally calm and had a presence about her. So they knew something was up, and when she turned out to be a dragon, okay. Which I thought was good, right? If the players can kind of guess, that means that they're engaging with the story, and they feel like they're winning, right? They feel like, okay, I get what's happening in the world now. I'm a part of this. And that's really, really important. That's something you want to foster. There seems to be a theme around deadly threats at low levels in WotC Adventures. If the players don't behave, they get stomped. I'm not really sure it's like the adventure writer's fault. It's just low-level characters only have so many hit points, right? I think it's just really, really... It's deadly. It's dangerous to be a first-level adventurer. I'm not really sure that you can get around that besides having them level up after 4 goblins and getting some treasure. This whole adventure uses story-based leveling, by the way. You gain a level after each of these chapters, and then it tells you how you would adjust it for what level they come at. This particular encounter, it says, because they are 3rd level now, there's 3 steam drakes. This is the one encounter. It's one of the 3 random encounters, place wherever you want encounters. I thought this one was the weakest. It's just there's a hot spring, and if you rest in the hot spring, you can spend a hit die for free. But it's guarded by a bunch of steam drakes. And it's there because I think a brass dragon died there long, long ago. But the players have no way of knowing that unless they go into the library and look it up. But the adventure doesn't tell you that. That's something you have to realize as a DM. So if you do your work ahead of time and put that factoid in the library, when the players explore the library and do some research, you can say, hey, there's a brass dragon that was buried at this part of the island. And then when they sail around, they're like, oh, this is the same spot. And they realize that's what the hot spring is. Yada, 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 yada. So again, this whole feeling that nothing is really connected, or that the story is buried so down, it just exists in the adventure, and there's not a way for the players to really get to this deeper lore about the island. One of the major downsides of this adventure. But this encounter was fun. They enjoyed their bath in the hot springs. Everyone likes the fan service scene. Kobold Ambush. This is a deadly encounter. Okay? Had my kobolds not lost initiative, because they surprised everybody, it would have wiped the party. Absolutely would have wiped the party. 8 kobolds, even though they only have like 5 hit points, that's so much damage. And again, there's flying ones too. This encounter can be solved because the kobolds are super, super starved and desperate. So if you offer them food or money, they will stop fighting. They're the renegade kobolds. They don't work for either of the dragons. I prepared some lines of dialogue for these folks. Live free or die. We'll never go back to serving a dragon. We're not going to work for anybody. I described them as being really thin. You could see their ribs. Meat's back on the menu, boys. I made it clear that they wanted to eat the players. Or eat the characters. Still, the players didn't catch on, and it was a really, really tough fight. Again, had the kobolds not lost initiative and gone last and essentially lost their surprise round, this would have been a TPK. Yeah, and 5e is way less deadly in the levels than previous editions. So if I were running this encounter again, I would emphasize the fact that they are just really hungry even more. Every single turn, I would try to hint that their players might have a way out of this, because this could go very, very poorly. All right, and that brings us up to, the final fight. So I think we talked about this earlier. According to the adventure, when the players arrive here, there is 2 kobolds fighting a bunch of sturges. And the players can help the kobolds to fight in the sturges. The kobolds are actually the brothers of Mila back at the Abbey. So these 2 kobolds are related to the tinkerer who runs the store at the Abbey. And so they have the potential to be friendly. And they are really impressed with what they're doing. So the way this is set up is that there is a sleeping dragon over in the next part of the tower. Sparkrender is there just napping. And you can sneak around him with the DC, I think, 14. So that means it's entirely possible that your whole party can just crit on a sleeping dragon and just end the adventure right there. That is entirely possible to happen. Which I think is kind of not really all that great. However, if you talk to him and he flees, or you guys leave before you kill Sparkrender, the ritual will go off the next day according to the adventure. If you leave this observatory while Sparkrender is still alive, then the ritual goes off. But it's entirely possible that this ritual never happens. Sparkrender also has another dragon, Adrian or something like that, who is captured below one of the towers. Adrian was at the cloister 5 days before, and yet if you read the adventure, none of the NPCs know that. That's not something that is ever in their little personalities that they will talk about. And so that's another one of those areas that with good prep work, you can sort of build up to a finale. You could say, Varith, right? She will tell you that there was a fight between Elder Runera and Adrian 5 days ago, if you get her disposition to friendly. One of the other kobolds, Rex, right? If you get him friendly towards you, or just get him away from the other kobolds who will scold him, he'll just yabber on and tell you that there was a dragon here, and that the dragon left. So there's opportunity to sort of foreshadow what had happened before you get to chapter 3. But you have to do some thinking as a DM. You have to sort of expand what you're given. You're not homebrewing. You're just really sort of taking what's given and going 2 or 3 steps beyond, fleshing it out that way. Killing a sleeping dragon is going to suck for everybody. Yes, I agree. Could you set the kobolds up as a stick-up? They only want food and gold. I suppose you could do that. That would actually make... Abram, that would make the encounter a whole lot easier if you did it as a robbery instead of as an ambush. Because what makes it so deadly is they essentially get a free turn on you. So for this last chapter right here, the thing I would change is I would have the ritual go off no matter what. Killing a sleeping dragon would be very anticlimactic, right? And that could just be the end of the adventure. So what I would say is if that happens, if you kill the dragon, the comet passes overhead and he comes back in like a Draco Lich form. You know, that'd be kind of cool. Or his ritual was enough complete that even after he dies, all the dead dragons, they come back to power, and then Rhaenyra has to turn into her brass dragon form and fly back. While she's fighting the Draco Lich of the real dragon that was here, you guys are fighting the little undead Sparkrender. Something like that. What we had happened was they had confronted Sparkrender, they had freed the dragon below, and after they had freed Adrian down in the tower, as soon as that happened, I decided that was a trigger for the ritual to start working. Because I wanted that to happen no matter what. And so that's the one homebrew change I'd make to this section. Is the ritual is cool, it's supposed to be the big climax of the adventure, and just killing the sleeping dragon is not going to cut it. So whatever you have to do, have some plans ready to have this thing go off and have a climactic fight. Yeah, there we go. There's our spark render. All right, so that's the end of sort of how I ran it. So overall, if I had to put like a numerical value, this was a 4 out of 5 star adventure. I really liked the way that it was written. It was very accessible for DMs. There are lots of things that were in there that I found helpful as someone, you know, who's played a long time and ran a lot of written adventures. And so if I found them helpful, I can imagine they would be invaluable to a beginner DM. I liked how all of the encounters that involved things that weren't complete monsters had a written solution that you could figure out a way to talk with them or negotiate or give them what they want. So it didn't have to end violently. Of course, that's always been an option D&D. You know, there's always a chance to, clever play. But I like the fact that the adventure went out of its way to present the DM with an idea for what a solution could be. That was a big highlight. The quest hub was fantastic. The idea that they have kobolds. Kobolds are fun. They're not your... when you think of D&D, you're thinking of goblins and dwarves and things like that. What you get in Phandelver. But I think the kobolds were really fun. The Abbey serves as a great quest hub. It's not like a village where... So let me think about the difference here, right? That with a village, there's lots and lots of places to go and see, and it can get kind of overwhelming. Here at the cloisters, there's just the cells where people sleep, the library, the kitchen, and the temple. Like, that's it, right? There's not a whole lot of excess stuff to bog down the DM and bog down the players. It's got what you need, and it seems more tight and tight-knit. You're going straight into the Curse of Strahd after Stormwreck, skipping Death House. That sounds good, right? Like when the comet passes overhead or the eclipse happens, it actually sucks you into the domain of dread. That's what maybe Sparkrender was doing. So, yeah. The dungeons were really cool. Both the caves were fun. It was sort of a different sort of feel that they expected the Micronoids to all be hostile. They didn't expect them to get the information. They expected the Guardian to be at the back of the dungeon, so the Guardian was at the front. It felt like a situation where they felt rewarded for trying to negotiate and figure out what was happening. It was like a little puzzle that they could work their way through. So that was really cool. The pirate ship, again, that was a really well-designed dungeon. The multiple layers, the deadly monsters, the cool treasure chest that you have to think about in terms of what would happen in the real world, not what would happen in a video game in order to get the full effect. And then the fact that there's a harpy at the end. That's really kind of interesting to tie everything together. The fact that you come back out after this terrible fight and then the situation's changed. And like, oh, okay, that's what's going on. Again, and then this whole situation at the observatory is actually kind of fun. Kobolds are really impressed with what they're doing. They don't really understand that Sparkrender's a bad dude. They're just happy to be doing something. But the whole fight with the dragon I thought was really kind of weak. That's probably the worst part. Besides the fact that nothing connects to this, Like this sort of like comes out of nowhere and supposed to be the finale. The fact that you can just kill the sleeping dragon or the ritual can't even go off. Those are both things that I think would be really disappointing if a new DM just ran that completely as written and the adventure ended that way. Ooh. Okay. Well, I think that's almost all I have to say. Yo, chat, if you have any questions, I'll hang around for like another minute and go through all this. Dragons of Stormwreck Isle or Dragons of Icespire Peak? Which did it better? I've never played Icespire Peak, but I have listened to a couple of reviews. Like, I've listened to some of Bob's stuff. I've listened to Sly Flourishes just to get a sense of it. That one, commercially, is the better deal, right? You get the sidekicks, you get character creation rules. It goes to level 7. But this is really, this adventure is fantastic for new DMs, right? If you're trying to get somebody into the hobby, if someone's never played before, this does it better than anything else. The first zombie encounter, they give you step-by-step. Here's how you run a combat. Look at the stat block. Roll for initiative. And then here's what the zombies would do. They would move forward. They would attack. And then you go for the next turn. Stuff like that. They give you lots of box text. They give you a section on DM tips and tricks. So Phandelver, though. Phandelver is a better adventure, right? Phandelver is a cooler story. It has a better monster selection. It feels more like D&D. It's going to take you a longer time. It has more interesting parts and pieces. Although I think this adventure has better NPCs. So Phandelver is the better adventure, but this is the better starter set, right? This is the better to get somebody started at playing the game. Ooh. All right, and I think that's a good place to end it. All right, folks, but don't go too far. Come back in 15 minutes, and I got a special stream. I'm on vacation. Wife and baby are out of the house, and so we are going to do Blitz and Blitz. I am going to be reviewing a certain product and playing speed chess against chat. I'll be posting links in the chat right there. Click on it and you can try to play me and blitz while I am blitzed. 15 minutes, folks. See you then.